Welcome to Women in Retail Talks, a podcast from Women in Retail Leadership Circle. Our mission is to foster leadership development for our membership community of women executives at leading retailers and brands. We've updated our podcast format to better serve the wants and needs of our community. Our refreshed podcast will feature in-depth interviews with female C-suite executives from enterprise retail organizations who've defined their own career success and made their way to the metaphorical corner office. The episodes will include stories of professional growth, leadership development, personal journeys, and more. Every other Wednesday, you'll get real advice and valuable lessons from these powerhouse women. We hope you enjoy our show, and we welcome your feedback. Hello and welcome to Women in Retail Talks, the podcast where C-suite executive women in the retail space share their stories of professional growth, leadership development, personal journeys, and more. I'm Christina Stidham, Digital Content Director at Women in Retail Leadership Circle, a membership-based community of executive women at leading retailers and brands. This episode of Women in Retail Talks features part of an interview with Lauri Kien Kotcher, CEO of The Shade Store, from our recent February Women in Retail and Total Retail virtual exchange. In the discussion with Women in Retail Leadership Circle Senior Editor Marie Albajes, Lauri shares what it's like becoming the first outside CEO to join The Shade Store in its 75-year history, how to know when it's time to transition to a new opportunity, how she's keeping her teams motivated, what she's doing to grow the leadership pipeline for women in retail, and more. You can watch Lauri's full interview from the February virtual exchange event, as well as discussions with other leading retail and brand executives, on Total Retail's website or at the link in the show notes. Now let's hear from Marie and Lauri.
Hi, and welcome back. Thanks for staying tuned in. I'm Marie Albajes, the Senior Editor at Women in Retail Leadership Circle and Total Retail. I am so excited about our next session. So I am thrilled now to be joined by Lauri Kien Kotcher, the CEO of The Shade Store and a Women in Retail Leadership Circle board member. Hi, Lauri.
Hi there. Hi, everybody. Thanks, Marie.
Yes, welcome. Thanks for joining us. So I'm going to go into your background a little bit, and then we'll just go straight into questions. So Lauri has a fascinating career built around her passion, and I love this, for building consumer brands that people fall in love with. Before she landed her current role at The Shade Store, she was the CEO of the naturally friendly personal care company Hello Products. She also spent time as a senior advisor at L. Catterton, as the CMO of Godiva, and as the head of global brand at Pfizer. And before that, she spent 15 years at McKinsey & Company, focused on luxury retail, fashion, packaged goods, and consumer healthcare. So a lot to unpack there, Lauri. So let's jump right in. I want to talk to you first about your move to The Shade Store after a few years at Hello Products. And for those of you who don't know, The Shade Store is a wholly curated custom window treatment service. So a little bit different than Hello Products. Lauri, what brought this move on? What attracted you to The Shade Store?
So thanks so much, Marie. There was a lot that attracted me about The Shade Store. First, it's an amazing consumer experience, and has retail and omni-channel features to it. So similar to some of the things I've done in my past, like Godiva. Secondly, it has fantastic founding family, 75-year history, which is tremendous, again, similar to Godiva, and has been the leader in its category for quite a long time. It also has incredible investor base, leading private equity investors. So all of these ingredients made it a really exciting opportunity for me to come in and work with the team that's there to just continue to make the Shade Store better and better every day.
Yeah. And you're the first outside CEO of the Shade Store, is that correct?
I am. It is an honor and a privilege and really a humbling experience to be the first non-family CEO in the 75-year history. Yeah. So I do take that responsibility very, very seriously. The goal, as I said, is to make life better for 1,700 team members. We call them partners, and to just make our customer experience continue to be at a world-class service level.
Yeah. So how do you prepare for a role like that, knowing that you're going to be the first, non-family member to come in? I mean, that's intimidating, right? It's important. It's a lot of pressure. How do you prepare for that? And tell me what your first 90 days looked like.
Sure. Well, first, similar to other roles that I've had where you come in and you just try to listen and learn. And the first thing that I really focused on is getting to know people, getting to know, the members of the family, getting to know the investors, getting to know as many of the folks on the team as I can. One of the things I've just done is a round of roundtables with probably about 700 of our team members in small groups, sharing my priorities for the company for this year. And that's been fantastic because it's a great opportunity to chat with them and talk to them about how each of the teams in the company really is going to contribute in very different ways for us to achieve these priorities.
Yeah. There's a balance, I think, that you have to always strike between giving the new team your ideas and your priorities, and then listening and absorbing and learning the culture and all of that. Where do you see that balance?
I love that question. That's, in fact, the exact thing I was talking to one of our teams, our real estate team, about yesterday. What I was saying is it's really this great opportunity to blend all of the history and the learning from folks who've been there for many years, lots of folks who've been there for a long time and are really passionate, really knowledgeable, they're experts. And then I've been bringing in some new leaders, probably about 5 or 6 really critical new leaders, and they're all coming and learning at the same time and asking a lot of great questions. So what we need to do is really blend the perspectives of the folks who've been there and have been doing it, and then bring in new thinking and innovative approaches, and then just keep accelerating what we're doing and keep going faster and better by really blending the two. So it's really great because we don't want to change some of the foundations of the culture, the family vibe, the entrepreneurial spirit, focus on moving really fast. What we want to do is take the new perspectives, the best new thinking, and blend that in and keep moving us forward so that we can just continue to grow really fast.
Yeah, I remember when we were talking a few weeks ago, you said, even though it's a 75-year-old company, it still feels like that entrepreneurial spirit. It still feels a little bit like a startup. So I'm curious if you can go into, how you're approaching that as the CEO and what you're looking at for the future if you have that kind of startup mentality.
That's a great question. It in some ways it does remind me of when I started at Hello Products, which really was truly a startup, and you're just trying to figure out all the ways to do things. What I find in that sort of startup approach is it's just really entrepreneurial. You're trying to move really fast, and then what I'm always trying to bring is a little bit rigor and insights and data and that kind of thoughtful approach to add to it, but not to slow us down, just to make us better. So it's that constant combination of how do I unlock some new thinking, and usually all the ideas are there. It's not that we're bringing new ideas. It's just that we might spur questions that get us to rethink some of the ways we're doing things so we can do them even better.
Yeah. Thinking outside. I love that. And I want to ask if that's something that you've taken to each one of your companies, and in that, let's talk about the span of your career a little bit more. How do you take that approach with each company, and at the same time, how do you know when it's time for a transition?
Two different questions. Let me start first with the approach at each place I've gone. Certainly post McKinsey, that's something that I have brought with me. So when I got to Pfizer's consumer business, again, I had a team with people with 20 plus years of experience. And I was trying to spur innovation in ways that hadn't been done before on huge global brands like Listerine, Nicorette. Listerine became $1 billion brand while we were there. And I remember distinctly someone saying, what are you going to tell us about Listerine that we don't know? So it's not so much about new data, but new ways of looking at the data and saying, what does this tell us in terms of what we should do? And one example there was looking at people who use Listerine. Most people just use it twice a day. Just use it once a day. So we said, well, what if you could get them to use it twice a day? Obviously, the brand could be twice as big. How would you do that? And so that's a sort of small thing, but based on an insight. So it's about marrying insight and finding the right insight with some new ways to innovate and trying some new things. And so we started a campaign, 15-second commercial and a cap wrap that were all about 2X, and that ran for several years. And was pretty simple idea, but really worked. So it's those kinds of things that I am always looking at. And, similarly, there were a few things like that at Hello. When I joined, we didn't have whitening toothpaste. Whitening toothpaste is at least 80% of the market. So I said, well, let's launch whitening toothpaste. And we did. And that became, a great item.
Yeah. So a good way of thinking. I love that.
So the second thing you asked was about career transitions. How do you know when it's time? I will say you don't ever exactly know when it's time. And in some ways, I feel like I may have stayed slightly longer than maybe some people would have in the right situation. 15 years at McKinsey, certainly. Most people, the average, I think, is 2.5 years, something like that. Some of the other transitions, Pfizer, the company got sold. So it became clear that was a good moment for me to transition. Lehman Brothers, which you didn't mention, was a short stint. I was there when Lehman went under. So it was kind of obvious. In some other situations, it's really more, I think, instinct and also just listening to your gut of, is this still a place where I can have impact? And am I feeling excited when I wake up every day? And if I start to feel not as excited and feeling like, I've tried these things before. And so, for example, with McKinsey, I remember thinking, okay, I'm saying to my teams, I've tried that. It's not going to work. So I was getting to be a glass is half empty sort of person. And that's when I knew it was time to go, because I'm really a glass is 3/4 full kind of person. So that's how I've known. And a lot of times it's when the people change too, and you've got a new team, and just is it still a match with what you want to do, or have you kind of done enough and it's a good time to move on.
Yeah. But you didn't necessarily have like a roadmap of where you wanted your career to go.
No, I will say my plan got as far as 2 years into McKinsey. Once I got to McKinsey and I was 2 years in, I literally ran out of plan for my career. And that was obviously very early on. What I encourage people to do, though, is just think about ways to take your skills and marry them to different opportunities that you might have and say, am I bringing something from what I've done? And am I gaining something? And I always look at it when I'm looking at a new opportunity is, will I have more options on the other side of this opportunity than I did walking in? So I always want to try new things. I want to learn new things. And I want to build on something I've already done. So I want to make sure I've got something I can leverage and that there's receptivity. It's a place that will be receptive to new ways of doing things. And of course, the people are always the most critical. Is this a group of people, both the founders, the team, to the extent you meet them, and the investors? This is a group of people that I really want to invest a lot of time with, because you spend a lot of time with them. Yeah. So those are to me some of the really important ingredients.
Yeah, that's such a good way to look at it. And it makes sense now seeing your trajectory of your career. If you've been thinking about those things each time you're ready for a move, it makes sense to see where you are now. So,
yeah. But I will say, some people have a plan. I never really had a plan. I think I never planned to be a CEO. I never really aspired in the early days of my career to be a CEO. If I had, I probably would have left McKinsey much earlier. And done things differently. And now when I look backward, I realize, the CEO roles I've had really have been helped a lot by all the other things I've done, the time in investment banking, the time in consulting, the time in private equity, the time as a CMO. All of those things have helped me tremendously and really helped prepare me for these CEO roles.
Yeah, that's great. I know one of the things that we talk about at Women in Retail all the time is kind of the workplace culture and figuring out ways, we're 2 years into this kind of new work lifestyle, figuring out ways to retain and keep employees happy. Another kind of huge pain point that everyone's going through right now. So, speaking of innovative ideas, is there anything that the Shade Store is focused on that is helping those employees, stay happy and stay motivated?
So that is also, I love that question. There's a couple of things that I've done already. I mean, even in my really earliest days, some of them are just really simple and obvious and basic. We've decided to invest heavily in our team. One thing we did this year is healthcare costs went up 15% for the healthcare that options that we provide. We decided that we would take all of those costs on us, on the company, and the company would invest in those. And so we basically are investing EBITDA in healthcare costs. So we have not charged our team any more money for their same healthcare options. And I sent a note out about that and got just, as you can imagine, tremendous response from the team. Some small things. When I joined, we had just reopened some of the offices, so it had been fully remote for in the offices for a while. Remember that we have showrooms. Our design consultants had been in showrooms probably since about May of 2020. We closed for a short time, but then reopened. And our, measure and install professionals had been out in people's houses the whole time. So, and then of course, people in our workrooms where we're making our product, and we have 4 workrooms in the US, we've had people there the whole time. So really it had been, the smallest part of our population, which was, office-based team. Anyway, they were coming back to the office. And we had taken out the refrigerators because if you remember back in the beginning of COVID, there was a belief that, maybe the refrigerators are capturing germs. So one of the first things I did is get refrigerators back in all the offices. And we talked about it as, part of the initiative to have people have, the healthier life that they wanted. They could bring their food to work again. So again, really small things. They've gotten, huge feedback. And the third thing, we sent out, really nice, I'll say swag at the holidays, and we gave people choices of what they wanted to choose. And you had 3 choices, and I got, really nice feedback about that. Just big thank you from the team. So we're trying to do as much as we can to invest in the team, and then finally things like communications roundtables, that I'm doing with as many of our colleagues as I can. And as I said, literally probably 700 or 800 people. And we're talking about things like development plans and developing yourself and developing our teams, right? And how do you build your career? How do you grow at the Shade Store? Just having those conversations. And then also talking about feedback and really, building on what we have to have even more feedback. And we do have feedback. There's an email address at the Shade Store that's, feedback at, and I'm on that. Anyone can send me an email, and they do. Mm-hmm. They all have my email, my direct email to Shade Store. They all have my cell phone number. So anyone can call me, and we really want to keep building that culture of feedback. And in these roundtables, we're doing Q&A, and we're getting people involved, and we're asking for their ideas. So it's just very much a culture of how do we make our team members' lives better every day in many ways, from the sort of really small to, how does it impact their career?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because I wanted to ask you about kind of your leadership pipeline and your ideas around growing and maintaining that leadership pipeline. You're on the board of Women in Retail. You obviously, recognize the importance of, employees, especially women, getting into that leadership position. So if you could talk a little bit more about, whether you guys have a leadership pipeline, and then maybe more generally, like how do you as a woman, as a female leader, kind of see that going?
Great question. Thank you. One of the things that we will be looking at is for all of our leaders, all of our senior leaders, really making sure that we do have some leadership pipeline in place. If someone got hit by a bus, who would replace them? Do we have that person on the team? What are we doing to grow and develop that person? So those are conversations that we're just starting to have, and especially as I get to know, all the groups of leaders better and better, and work with my team, and I have a lot of new people on my team in place as well. We've, as I said, brought in half a dozen senior leaders, not just on my direct team, but we also have a new head of talent. Which has been tremendous because, talent is the key thing. And we are hiring all over the place. We're hiring design consultants, we're hiring M&I professionals, we're hiring in our workrooms, and we're hiring in, customer care and the corporate offices. So we have lots of positions that we are trying to fill, and we're holding a very high bar that we want really fantastic people, both from a skill set and very importantly, from a cultural mindset of they want to be partners with us. We don't want employees. We want partners. We want business partners. And we really like to think about it that way. And we really think we're giving you a great opportunity to learn and grow for a long time.
You can watch Lauri's full interview from the February virtual exchange event, as well as discussions with other leading retail and brand executives on Total Retail's website or at the link in the show notes. Thanks for listening. For more information on this podcast, please check out our podcast channel page at womeninretail.com/podcast for show notes. Women in Retail Talks is available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and Spotify. Make sure to subscribe on our podcast channel page as well. If you've enjoyed this episode, please take a few moments to rate and review. To learn more about women in retail and become a member of this amazing community, visit womeninretail.com. Thanks, and until next time, this has been Women in Retail Talks.